that?
Listen, I always root for investigative, serious journalists. I'd like them to really take a
How
harder
many are
look.
left?
I don't know. I don't count them, but you know, they come up. There's a whole younger generation that's good. They're out there on the internet. They're trying. You know, it's hard to get the truth because you need to get. You have to have access to power to get some of the inside stuff. But sometimes access to power switches on you. You get access to power and you get their story. All this embedding journalists in Iraq and in Afghanistan is sick.
Is it even journalism?
It's not journalism. It's army. It's pro-military patriotism is what it is. Wow. At the end of the day, they end up writing about, you know, all this Iraq war, all this Afghani war, all these movies. It's about American soldiers and America this, America that. You don't even see an Iraqi. You don't see an Afghani in these movies. You don't get a sense of the overall picture of what it's like from their side when they see American soldiers.
And of course, the war you were in, there were no controls.
None.
Do you think that was better?
Absolutely.
Now that you're a grown-up? And
absolutely, yeah. The journalists were roaming free, and they wrote what they saw. It was like World War II.
But there's one body of thought that helped take the war down.
Well, that's the revisionist, the Crystal Petraeus theory, and there is a theory around, written, Louis Sorley wrote a new book about how the Vietnam War was won by us, and in fact it was betrayed by the politicians. This is old stuff, and they passed that off in the 80s and the 70s and Rambo, and it goes on, and you know, we trashed the country, we wrecked it, we killed everybody we could, we left a ruin, and we call that victory. We say now they're free.
When were you last in Vietnam? I mean,
I was there recently, about 4 or 5 years ago, but I went back 10 times, 8 times.
And how have you seen it grow? I mean, do you see...
In spite of it. We didn't recognize the place. We dumped on it, horrible, the rubble, chemical warfare. They had no bitterness about it. They looked, some older people did, but the younger generation moved on. It was ghosts in a landscape. They fought wars against China, France, us, you know, they call it the American War. You have to understand they were very resilient people and extraordinary people, and their economy has rebounded enormously with a state-dominated economy. But still, America did not help in any way financially to this war. They never apologized. We should have apologized. At least Clinton had the decency to apologize about the genocide in Guatemala.
Well,
we never said anything to the Vietnamese.
It takes time. Well, it does. It takes time.
I'm going to apologize for what was it, the Salvador War.
Did they ever show Platoon or Heaven and Earth in Vietnam?
Everywhere, yeah. So, I mean, some of it was underground. They don't have much of a cinema system, but it's all, you know, home videos and stuff.
It would just be interesting. I just wondered if maybe you'd gone over there to show your films and perhaps talk to the Vietnamese
most of the people have seen
audience about it. But let's go back to South America, which is, it was very interesting. I thought that when you were just down there on the promotional end of this project that you weren't allowed to fly over Colombia. Is that true?
You heard about that?
I did.
Well, I don't know if that was personal specific. We did have an airspace problem. We didn't get to Brazil on time, and we lost our press conference there. But the Colombians have not been cooperative with most of their neighbors. They're not considered a good neighbor.
Did you try to speak to? Did you try?
Not on this occasion, but we knew the Colombians want to make films. They're very they like Hollywood movies. They're very pro-America right now. And they've gone through a period, but you have to keep in mind that they've killed a lot of the reformers and the trade unionists. People who've tried to reform that society have been murdered by paramilitaries, which are disguised militaries, financed a large part by the United States. We put $6 billion into, almost $7 now, into Colombia. Remember that. We have gained no help to any of these other reformers who are really trying to change their society.
But have you traveled to Colombia even without cameras? I mean, have you?
No, I traveled to Colombia when I was researching Scarface for cocaine back in 1983.
Back then.
Two.
Yes, I know it's hard to.
No, Colombia is a pretty beautiful country, beautiful people, but they have a political system. And they're a puppet. Let's call it what it is. They're an American puppet in that region, and they've been condemned by UNISOR, which is the unified other countries, as an American military, having American military bases. They've aggressed against Ecuador, and they claim all these claims about terrorism and the war on drugs. This war on drugs is a very tricky thing. War on drugs is like the old USAID program in Vietnam. You know, to get in and then control and keep an eye on the people.
I'm not sure anyone understands the war on drugs, even the people who are waging it.
Money, it's about DEA.
Well, of course it's about money. I mean, but to what extent do you think the drug money is more important than the oil money in South America? It's the same kind of principle. Does it pretty much come out the same?
It's giant corporations, monopolies, yeah.
And do you feel that the American government is as complicit in both?
Complicit's a big word. You know, there's obviously, you know, the world is tricky. It's very tricky when you get up to the big money. And, you know, you can never prove some of this stuff, but there's been a series of banks that the United States government has been involved in through rogue agencies called the CIA. I mean, the Nguyen Han Bank, there's been banks everywhere. The BSI scandal from the 80s, people forget all this stuff. But if you go back into the Iran-Contra hostage crisis with George Bush Sr., you find a lot of dirt on these people. And they get away with it because, you know, when Clinton came in, he never investigated that Iran-Contra mess. But that was, it was ugly. BCI Bank scandal.
Well, you know, they've always said that most of, I think it's Biscayne Boulevard in Miami is built on, all those banks are built on.
Well, yeah, I was there during I did Scarface there researching it, and it was amazing. The Brickell Avenue was jumping up. It was beautiful. It was
Miami
stunning.
today bears no resemblance to Miami of 30 years ago. It's been
no, some people complain about it. You know, other people accept it. It moves on.
It's very vibrant.
But Miami has got another problem, and that's the Cuban right-wing community that's living there. They
I have a feeling are too fond of you.
Them, they have destroyed. They have really hurt this country, and they have blocked this. They've made an embargo on Cuba that's not worked, and it's been a first. It's ridiculed by the rest of the world. Everyone wants to.
Do you ever engage in debate with
Obama
any of their leaders?
Won't give it up. Even Obama, who's a reform candidate, so to speak,
yeah,
wants to keep. Thinks he has to win Florida in 2012 by keeping the embargo, so he can please these in that community.
But seriously, have you ever debated any of your
Yeah, some of them. I run into them. They pick on me in restaurants and stuff.
Who wins the debate?
They go up and they
yell at me.
I
meant it more formal.
They yell at me and they say, "Oh, you like Chavez? Chavez is a dog, a pig, a killer." They're the Latin people are very explosive temperaments.
And that, well, of course, then that draws you.
That's sort of why you have to understand why the media can be so hysterical down there, because most of the media people don't know in this country, in those countries that are being attacked all the time, the media is owned by a few rich families. And about 80–90% of what people see, because most of the people who are poor don't read, don't watch this stuff, but that's what we get in the States. And we get our collaborators feed back to our media, which is also controlled by rich people.
Well, what about the internet, though? Is that an accessible?
Internet is free down there. You can do any internet action. It's
so
not
that
like China.
Must be an incredible power.
Yeah. So what is everybody bitching about Chavez for? I mean, it's free. You can say anything you want on the internet. Anything.
It's not blocked like they do in China.
That's right.
Did you? Are you seeing Obama while you're here?
No.
Well, I don't know. Lots of Hollywood people come here and see the president. It's not the strangest question.
No, I mean, I don't, listen, I'm not that kind of wheel. George Clooney might. I saw Obama when he was, before he was president. And he was a very decent, I thought, candidate. I helped him at that point.
Would you want him to screen south of the border?
Oh yeah, I would love him to, but right now he seems to be...
well, you're going to send him a...
I guess we should, right, John? Would you send him something? John being over there.
And what would be the note you would send to him with it? What would you want
him
to pull out of it? Yeah.
Change your mind. Wake up. You're being surrounded by State Department cronies that are giving you, including Mrs. Clinton.
The perception that was initially put out there about Obama was that he was friendly with Chavez, but then Chavez tries to debunk that a little bit, don't you think?
Excuse me, Carol. Let's go back in time. Cause and effect. I mean, they did handshake. There was a wonderful moment. It was it was like the Muslim speech in Cairo. He really, believe me, he had the Muslim world.
You loved that.
He had that at hello. He could have continued and made one gesture. It would have made that world different. Now the Muslims have given up on him. Really, they have, and so have the Latins, because there was a moment. He was real. Trinidad, Tobago, great moment, new regime. Everybody, all Lula of Brazil, Ecuador, Correa, Morales, the Indian. They were all beautiful. It was all a wonderful moment. And then what happened? Honduras. Remember Honduras? There was a coup in Honduras. All of them condemned the coup because it was illegal. It was a reform candidate who was removed, and the United States sat there weakly on the sidelines and did nothing. And here's Hillary Clinton 2 years later going down there and saying, "Can you forgive us and please accept this new sovereignty?"
You're very hard on
No, I am, because you have no idea what it does. In Honduras, Honduran protesters approached me yesterday. They said they'd been tortures there. There's new regime. There's 7 journalists have disappeared in Honduras. You don't even see that in the headlines here. If there was one journalist who disappeared in Venezuela, it would be screaming